In the first 2 rounds of the chase, we've had 4 races, but we've only had 2 race winners. Michael Krobach sweeping both the races at Kansas, and Scott Eckridge sweeping both the races at Darlington. The trend's been set. Are we going to follow that trend? Tonight, round 3 of the chase takes us out west to the land of right turns and wine tasting. It's a picture-perfect day here in Sonoma, California, as we get ready for the Sonoma Aroma 128K presented by The Joy of Driving. Hi folks, I'm Austin Belke, joined in the booth by J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe. As always, we've got our great director Ryan Seneker behind the scenes in the production trailer. J.R., what makes Sonoma so special?
Well, Austin, Sonoma Raceway is a 1.99-mile road course that has 12 total turns, counting the S's on the back side of the track. The surface here, it's very worn and slick. The drivers will have their hands full here tonight, just keeping the car straight as they accelerate out of the turns. But if you can master putting the throttle down smoothly, you will have a huge advantage in overtaking your competition here in those passing zones. The first one is going to be going through the chute and breaking down into turn 7. This is one of the easiest places to pass because of the amount of track available. It's a very wide section through there, gives you plenty of room to maneuver. The next zone is going to be coming out of the S's and into the hairpin of turn 11. But you have to be careful there. It's very easy to outbrake yourself and miss that apex, giving your competitor an easy pass, which goes into the next zone. The final zone will be coming out of that hairpin and going up the hill into the first 2 corners. If you can get to the right side of someone going up the hill, you will have the preferred inside line in the turn 2, allowing you to complete that pass. And Austin, like I said, accelerating out of the corner smoothly and braking later than your competition are the best ways to pass here, but you have got to keep it on the racing surface if you want a chance to win here tonight.
Thanks, Jared. The mind goes back to one race in the 90s. I really think Ricky Rudd spun out Davey Allison, and, of course, NASCAR reversed it. And then 2016, Tony Stewart paid Denny Hamlin back with a crash coming out of the hairpin turn. So if you think races can be won and lost here, you're exactly right. The hairpin is the place to do it. Who can't forget Tony Stewart with his rear end picked up off the pavement back in 2011? Little payback from Brian Vickers back in the day. Kenny, you've got some keys to victory for us.
Yeah, guys, so tonight the biggest key will be just to keep the truck on the pavement, just staying on the racing surface, not going off, getting slow down, spinning out, things like that should get you a decent finish tonight in these twin races. Secondly, a lot of downshifting, a lot of slow corners, a lot of braking here, so avoiding wheel hop is going to be a big deal. It's always a big deal in hard braking zones in any NASCAR stock car vehicle at these road courses. So wheel hops will be a big deal and will become worse and more of a factor as the tires wear out on these race trucks. And lastly, I think that slower is faster. It's really a rhythm racetrack. And again, the average speed here at Sonoma is on the slower side of things. So just getting in a good rhythm, hitting your marks, and just being smooth, I think will lead to a decent or really good lap time around Sonoma Raceway.
Thanks, Kenny. Currently, drivers are out on the racetrack. They have 5 minutes to put down 2 clean laps as usual. Those 2 laps need to be clean. They're then averaged out to set the grid for race number 1. And then, as always, the grid for race number 2 is a complete inversion of the finishing positions. You can see drivers currently out there on the racetrack finishing up their qualifying runs. See, most of the drivers in this session have put down a run. The fastest of them so far, Scott Eckridge. And Kenny, it's such a difficult, challenging track, and it's hard to get it right for 1 lap, much less nail 2 of them perfect back-to-back.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's a short track for a road course standpoint, but there's a lot of corners that go to it, and they're all really different. A lot of curbs. Some of them will punish you, others will help you. There's just kind of a lot going on here, and it gives you kind of a claustrophobic feel at times because the racing here is really tight. It's hard to get away from other vehicles when you're here at this racetrack. A lot of bumping and banging. This can be a pretty physical racetrack at times, both with yourself in the racetrack, but also with your competitors as well.
Yeah, this racetrack, of course, on the narrower side of things, as you ascend and descend, the hill. There's lots of superbike racing here, and it's got plenty of room for superbikes, but when you get these 3,500-pound stock trucks up on the hill, it gets a little bit challenging to navigate it with a full field of cars. Qualifying session has ended, and we now have the gridding order for race number 1. The two 20-lap features. Scott Eckridge starts on the pole. He'll have Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmussen, starting to his outside in the second position. Starting in the third position, Matt Taylor. We've seen so many races this year come down to fuel mileage. Matt Taylor's been one of the best at saving fuel, and of course in real life, the races in Sonoma have historically come down to a fuel mileage game, so look for him to be one of the stronger drivers if any sort of a strategy comes into play. Jeff Ward's going to roll off in the fourth position. He'll have Woody Mahan rolling off in the fifth spot just behind him. Starting to the right side of him, Michael Krobach in the sixth machine started off his chase very well. He's the driver to beat so far. Everyone going to have a great run tonight and have Krobach have a difficult yet challenging run if they want to have any shot at him as the playoffs continue. Matt Press rolls off in the seventh position, followed by the Watchman. Mark Cohn, he'll roll off in the eighth spot. Brian Yazik starts at ninth. He's the last of our 11 drivers on the grid to take a qualifying time. Then Rooster Rodden in 10th, and Mark Poe rolls off shotgun on the field.
One thing you did talk about there, Austin, was the fuel mileage. And just to note for all the viewers at home, tonight these races are both 20 laps apiece, and fuel mileage is projected to be around 22 laps. So I don't project there to be any pit stops tonight unless you have crash damage or some problem.
Excellent point there, Kenny. Another point I'd like to make, if you're looking for entertaining sim racing content, look no further than the joy of driving. Follow Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with his cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to The Joy of Driving on YouTube or like his Facebook page at facebook.com/The Joy of Driving channel. Big thank you to Mark Cohn and The Joy of Driving for sponsoring tonight's broadcast. You can see the field now up at the top of the hill going from turn 4 to turn 7. That's because we're avoiding that big interloop here, I should say, on the Sonoma race course. And then descending down the hill. Most of it relatively flat from left to right, but of course going downhill the entire time. And JR, if you go side by side with someone in this part of the racetrack, there's a high possibility you're going to get shunted off into the tire barriers on either side.
Yeah, big possibility, especially in these trucks. They have a high roll center. They do get extremely tight when you get offline on this racing surface. So definitely a place where you want to be single file. If you go in there too wide, you want to get single file as soon as you can. You do not want to maintain that side-by-side position. Like you said, before you know it, you're going to get shoved off the racing surface.
iRacing pace car goes to the outside of the track. A little bit interesting of a way you get onto and off of pit road here at Sonoma. Nonetheless, green flag is in the air. A very early start there from Scott Eckridge. You can see Matt Taylor taking advantage right away. He'll slot into the second position. Most of, if not all of field, yes, all the field, single file now as they start to ascend up the hill, and this is when you really have to slow yourself down, JR. Make sure your tires are at optimal temperature and pressure, I should say, before you really start to attack the track.
You absolutely have to. We talked about this track being worn, very slick, so you got to get some temperature in those tires. The truck will be moving around a lot on this initial lap. After that, these guys will be up to speed. They will be able to start racing each other.
Got Eckridge already away with a healthy lead. He's got about a second and a half back to Matt Taylor. And then from then on out, it's about 2 or 3 truck lengths from one car to another as they start to sort of rubber band away from each other on the faster sections of the track. And then they'll all come way back and get compacted together again at the bottom of the hill in the hairpin.
Yeah, and you can see everybody, they're still single file right now, but those temperatures, they're getting close to being where they need to be. And you can see this pass on Michael Krobach right now. Looks like it is going to be completed. Matt Press, is going to go by.
Oh, hold on, JR. Presses on the inside there, spun the rear tires quite a bit on corner exit. Michael Krobach just kind of got on there slowly but surely, and he's now pulled back. He's going to have the inside here for the corner, and then it's going to switch, go back to the right, being on the inside. Press now with the advantage. Looks like he's going to clear Krobach, and Michael's just going to fall back in line here.
Yeah, and that's the only good thing. If you make a mistake in that hairpin, the last corner here, if you can stay to that outside going up the hill alongside your competitor, you're going to have that preferred lane. Matt was able to do that there, so that's exactly what you want to do if you have a mistake.
So let's keep a mental note here of how Matt Press's tires fare out for the end of this race. Pushing really hard early on is usually a detriment to the overall tire wear as the race goes on, so would not be too surprised to see Matt Press kind of falling back through the field if he's really, kind of giving his tires the beans, as they say.
Yeah, and you're going to have to be careful on a track like this, especially in the trucks. A lot of these drivers, they'll try to dial some rear brake into it just to help that car not push as they're getting down into these flat corners. One of the things you can do, though, is you drive hard into these braking zones, you will start to overheat those rear tires. You'll actually start to get some wheel hopping. And if you get that wheel hopping, you're going to be in big trouble. So these drivers are going to have to be paying attention to that extra, especially at this racetrack. And if they start to feel anything from that rear end wanting to chatter as they're under braking, they're going to have to start making adjustments, start moving that braking to the front of the truck.
Right now we ride on board with Brian Yazik from Loud Pedal Motorsports. He's currently giving chase to Mark Cohn, the Watchman, and the 8 truck just up ahead. This is a phenomenal view of what you can see as you go around this racetrack. Lots of curve there. Puts that truck on the left side tires.
You got to be careful through that section, especially on entry. If you hit the inside curve too much, it can bounce you offline, and you'll actually get into the tire barrier there as you exit the corner. So you got to be very, very careful there. And it sounds like that's something hard to do, but it's not. Very, very easy to miss that curve and hit it in the wrong way.
That's one thing about the curbs here at Sonoma, JR, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, that you have to eat up a lot of the curbing around here, whether it really bounces you around in the race truck or not. Most of the curbs here, you really have to hit quite hard in order to shortcut the track as much as you can, because the track limits actually allow for a lot of curb usage around here.
Yeah, absolutely. You do have to use a lot of the curbing here. There's a few of them that are taller than others. The one going into the chute, it is a little bit taller, but all these other curbs, you really do have to eat them up, especially through the S's. You can really straight line the S's, smooth them out, and carry more speed through there by using up those curbs, and that's what you're going to see all these drivers do.
Ever since having passed that 72 truck of Michael Krobach, Matt Press has been hard-pressed to pull away from Krobach. Interesting that Krobach's been able to provide such good chase. You see him there. I think he wheel hopped a little bit into turn 7 there. That's why Matt Press now has a lot more breathing room than he previously did. But Krobach's one of those guys, I always feel like he saves his tires a decent amount, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see Krobach on the attack as this race comes closer and closer to a close.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's kind of a balancing act. If you're one of these drivers that is mid-pack or not toward the front of this field at the moment, you really got to take care of your tires, but you cannot afford to let those leaders get too far away from you. So you still have to carry good pace, but if you can carry decent pace, keep those drivers in your sights, and save those rear tires, you're going to have a huge advantage the last 5 or 6 laps here, because you're going to be able to accelerate out of the corners while everyone else is struggling.
Mark Cohn, not quite sure where it happened, but Brian Yazik has passed that 8 machine. That moves the 55 now into the 8th position. Looks like Mark Poe just pulled off line for him. Not a bad way to go, Kenny. Really just helps you save your tires. And just as much as we like to say there's an art to passing, there's also an art to being passed. So sometimes if you realize that the guy behind you is catching you, it's best to just pull over and let him by so you don't both lose time.
Yeah, and I think most, if not all, the drivers out here right now are just trying to, they're really racing the racetrack tonight. I think quite a few of these drivers are not probably weren't really looking forward to the road course here in this playoffs or postseason. So I think most of these guys are just trying to minimize their mistakes, just try to be smooth out there and get through this week and get on to the next week.
Speaking of last week, we were at Darlington. Scott Eckrich, always so strong at that racetrack, and probably the strongest driver in the league on road courses. You can see that 70 truck so far out in clean air ahead of that 91 machine. He's got about a 2.5 second lead over the rest of the field. That's Scott Eckrich looking to make it 3 in a row if he wins the first race here tonight. He swept both the ones at Darlington, and he really needs the points. He had such an abysmal run at Kansas. Really started the playoffs in a giant hole, JR.
Yeah, he definitely did, but could not have picked a better second week and third week of tracks for him to go to. Like you said, Darlington, he loves that track, does extremely well there, and we know how well he is on a road course. And as we're watching him right here, you can really see why. And he's doing some of what Kenny said there. He's really shortcutting those curbs. That's where he's gaining some time. But I know he's working inside of that race truck, but as you watch him here, look how straight and under control that truck looks at all times. That's why he's able to just pull away lap after lap.
Yeah, there's another way, in my opinion, you can really look at a vehicle out on the racetrack and see whether or not it's fast or smooth. And it's more evident on this racetrack at the back of the back side of the track when you come down the hill from 7A to about maybe turn 10. And that's when the vehicle changes direction. You know, how much is the weight shifting back and forth? Does the car kind of yaw one way or the other and a snappy feeling, or is it smooth? And you can't really tell when it starts turning from right to left. Looking at Scott Eckrich, it's very difficult to tell when he changes directions. But some of the other drivers in this league, and most race car drivers, to be fair, you can really see that car pitch itself left and right, almost like it were dancing. That's usually not the fastest way to go around a racetrack.
It's normally not. Some drivers can make it work, but normally what that's doing is just losing friction between the tires and the racing surface, losing grip. And when you're losing grip, you're not going forward. So that's what's slowing you down. You may feel really fast. You may feel like you're carrying a ton of speed and you're really having to work over in that truck, but you are not moving forward while you're doing that, and that's where you're losing the speed. Scott Eckrich is able to continue moving forward every single time he does something with that truck.
So this battle we've been watching on camera here for the last lap or so is between Michael Krobach and Matt Press. Remember, Matt Press looked pretty fast at the beginning of the run, got around Krobach, but we were saying that Krobach likes to really pace himself and be smooth, and it looks like I think his tire wear has been a little bit better than Press. Press has started to kind of slide that truck around. You can really see it through this first sector of the racetrack, how his truck is just kind of yawing out a little bit more than it was at the beginning of the race, and now Krobach starting to put the pressure back on him.
We never really commented on this either, but there was a position change for second and third. Mike Rasmus got around Matt Taylor. That's why you see old Mr. Consistency there in the second position. Here's a replay of that. And again, same thing as Mark Cohen. Just realize, hey, you're faster than me. I'll let you by. Hopefully you and Scott can get into each other. Or preferably, you go up there, maybe wear out your tires. I can pass you back, kind of the ebb and flow, give and take of these races. And now Taylor under fire once again for Mr. Jeff Ward.
And I don't think that this is a coincidence that you're starting to see what we've called the old guard of the PGRL, the veterans, coming up through the field, because they've run this track a few times now in PGRL history. So you got guys like Scott Eckrich, Mike Rasmus, Jeff Ward, and even Woody Mahan's having a great run too, and Michael Krobach. They maybe didn't all have the greatest start to the race, but they're slowly kind of gaining that time back as the run kind of wears on. They know how to keep the trucks underneath them for the long haul.
You see Krobach still just off that rear bumper of Matt Press, continuing to hound him as they go up the hill. Krobach, I don't know if he's getting more and more impatient, JR, or if he's just kind of getting more and more I'm going to say aggressive with how close he's running to Press, just in the hopes that maybe he slips up and Krobach can just gain all that lost time back on him. And, because if you're too far behind, guy ahead of you, great, he makes a mistake, but all you can do then is catch up to his back bumper. You're not really pulling alongside of him, and it looks like those two have swapped positions.
Yeah, it looked like to me that Matt Press may have just finally given up, knowing that he was going to have to work too hard to stay in front of Michael here. And definitely, Krobach at this stage looks like he has taken care of his stuff more than a few of those guys ahead of him. So you said it correctly. He was starting to get a little impatient. That's why we saw him hopping the curb a little bit up in turn 3. He was trying to get a good exit so he could make that pass. But fortunately for him, Matt Press decided to go ahead and let him go before they got to this.
See Matt Taylor in the yellow number 91 truck, still just barely ahead of Jeff Ward in that blue number 9. Those two are probably going to do battle, I would have to say, maybe a lap or two. Things will come to a boiling point. Just behind those guys, Kenny's a man you talked about, Woody Mahan. We've hardly talked about Woody all day today, but just kind of in there having a Woody Mahan of a day, just quiet consistency.
Yeah, Woody's been, he's had a really quiet day, like you said, but at least last lap he was faster than both Jeff Ward and Matt Taylor. So he's just, again, he's just doing what I think a lot of the drivers are going to try to do, and that's just be smooth, race the racetrack, and the race will kind of come to you over time as we're just about to eclipse the halfway point in this race. But again, yeah, great run for Woody Mahan, and top 5 right now and looking for more.
Yeah, there's pretty much no doubt in my mind he'll get up to at least the 4th position. I feel like things are kind of come to a boiling point here between the Ward and the Taylor machines. Then after that, somebody's got to lose their tires. I think Woody Mahan's just licking his chops right now, trying to get that 4th instead of the top 5. And again, top 5, not bad for Woody Mahan.
No, and Woody's extremely good on the road courses. I can remember a couple of seasons ago back at Watkins Glen, he had a fantastic run, almost a win there. So he's very, very capable on these road courses and knows how to get it done. And obviously, he's a driver, he realizes coming into this, he does not have the speed that someone like Scott Eckridge has, but he's definitely got the long run speed to be able to go up there and start passing some of these drivers at the end of the race. So definitely look for him to continue moving forward.
And in these races where you have a short field, I think the best thing that you really could see in front of you, at least if you have a distance to make up, is to see a little battle in front of you, because you know that if 2 drivers are going at it, fighting each other, they're just going to slow each other down, and that'll allow a driver like Woody Mahan to kind of just put in some good laps and make up some ground. Although I am starting to see, looks like Matt Taylor there in the last couple sectors actually pulled away a little bit from Jeff Ward, so maybe Jeff Ward overheating the tires a bit as he kind of was a little bit wide through the hairpin, maybe overheating his tires a little bit, trying to push, trying to grab that spot.
Well, let's talk about things on the other side of the coin as well, Kenny. I think Matt Taylor, we often talk about Matt Taylor being a great driver at saving fuel. The other part of saving fuel comes with saving tires. And that's all Sonoma or road course racing in a stock car is all about, in my opinion. And Kenny, you've talked about this a lot yourself, where if you're in a pure thoroughbred road car like a GT3 or a GT Le Mans, you just go at it as hard as possible. And you'll apologize to your tires after the race. It doesn't matter. They'll be fine. But in a stock car, that's not how you drive it. You have to really respect the good years underneath yourself, and I think that's what Matt Taylor has done. So we might just see Matt Taylor out there. He might continue to pull away from Jeff Ward, kind of just running kind of about the same the entire race.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you can, at tracks like this, you can kind of aim for, not necessarily aim for a lap time, but aim for kind of a certain amount of fall off. And if you can kind of keep that fall off being just consistent, and again, just avoid spinning the tires, getting sideways, locking up the tires under braking, things like that, then the truck might kind of come to you as the run progresses. And, you know, another thing, too, is that Ward being right up behind Taylor for quite some time, you know, he was having to deal with some dirty air, whereas Taylor has completely clear racetrack up ahead of him. So it's not a huge deal aerodynamically, but it certainly doesn't help having a truck in front of you. So, you know, I think Taylor just tried to be smooth, hit his marks, and now it's starting to bear fruits.
Yeah, and there's kind of a psychological side to that as well when you're right behind somebody. See Jeff Ward really sideways there over the hill in turn 3.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It is a good thing sometimes to have someone in front of you to chase, to kind of get an idea of where your braking points, where your turn-in points maybe should be. But after a while, if you're really trying to get by somebody and you just can't do it, it becomes more of a hindrance than anything.
We continue to ride on board here with Jeff Ward. Kenny, it's going to be probably the longest one this season, but what you say you take us for a lap around Sonoma Raceway as we continue to ride on board with Jeff Ward?
Yeah, so here we go. This is through turn 11, the next to last turn on the course, the slowest on the course, arguably anyway. So we'll come through turn 2, the short little flat out left-hander, turn 12, hit the start-finish line. Turn 1 up the hill here. This is a really cool spot, but it's kind of blinding at times. You have to kind of search for this apex here into turn 2 as we go down towards turn 3 and 3B, which is kind of another uphill S section. You want to shortcut this curb as much as you can. Keep the truck as straight as you can as you head down towards turn 4A. You want to clip that curb sometimes, but not a whole lot. As you see, it really upsets the truck. And now this is actually turn 7 if you're counting the entire road course layout. And down through the S's, through here, this is a really fun part of the course. You don't really do a whole lot of passing down here, but it's fun to straight line these as much as you can. And then we'll head down towards that hairpin once again. This is about the fastest part of the course other than the front stretch. This is a really tricky corner here too, that right-hander. Just trying to get that right and eat up the curb as much as you can. Really heavy braking down into the very slow hairpin turn 11, and then back out for turn 12. And a lap here in these trucks only takes about 1 minute 20 seconds or less, so they go by pretty quickly.
Oh, they go by pretty fast indeed. Whenever the NASCAR Cup Series comes here, traditionally they'll run about 120 laps. That's the targeted distance for a Cup Series race around this racetrack. Back further in the pack, you've got the 7th place driver, Matt Press. That's that teal and black 60 truck. He's got the 55, that red machine there of Brian Yazik, all up under his spoiler at the moment. Yazik looking for another spot. Press, I think, just anchored his tires a little bit too early on, a little bit too often in this race, and in the last quarter here, really starting to fall on the back foot.
Yeah, he's definitely going backwards. It'll be interesting because that's going to put him toward the back of the field. It'll be more interesting in race number 2 to see the adjustments he makes. We see Brian Yazik trying hard to get a run on Matt Press going there into turn 7, but just was not able to get the power down. It becomes a point in the race where anytime you see your competitor in front of you make a mistake, you really start trying to put that throttle down just a little bit more than what you have been. And unfortunately, the tires are just not going to have it at this stage. You're going to get a lot of rear tire spin.
Yeah, no pun intended, but it is quite the slippery slope there. When you notice that guy in front of you make a mistake and you step on it and get the car way too sideways, reel back in, and all the time you could have gained is lost, if not more than that. So it's a difficult situation here. Coming by the stripe this time, 5 laps to go, a whole high 5 left for Scott Eckridge. He's got an almost 10-second lead over Mike Rasmus. Then it's another 3 seconds back to Matt Taylor. Jeff Ward is 4th. Woody Mahan rounds out the top 5. The battle we're still currently looking at here between Matt Press and Brian Yazik. This is for the 7th position. Just up there on the racetrack, you see Mark Poe in the 60 machine. The 56 machine. He's currently 1 lap down, so won't be a factor in this race here. He got off the track, kind of pulled off to let the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place drivers by. So any second here, he should be doing the same thing for these two.
Yeah, I know right now. Brian Yazik almost got into the inner quarter panel there of Matt Press, so that was a close call. But I was going to say that even though we see Brian Yazik really moving around out there, he still seems to have more pace than what Matt Press does at this stage. So I fully expect Yazik to be able to make this pass. It's just getting that perfect setup made so that you can do it. And it looks like he's going to be able to do it going into turn 11 here. He's going to try, but Matt Press is able to outbrake him.
Yeah, Yazik got a phenomenal run there out of turn 10. Couldn't quite get it slowed down enough to outbrake Matt Press. Matt Press very knowledgeable about when to get it. Looks like he might just let him by here. Indeed he will. Yazik takes away the 7th spot.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all you have to do is be able to pressure your opponent at a place like this, because this place is so hard just to get around by yourself. When you start applying that pressure to somebody ahead of you, eventually they're going to go, I don't want to run that hard. I can't continue to push my truck this hard. I need to just let you go so I can make it to the end of this one.
Yeah, and at some point, too, you kind of start to run the racetrack, no offense, but irrationally. Maybe you start doing things that the guy behind you might not expect you to do, or maybe overshoot the corner and try to come back in it, and the guy behind you runs a much better corner and catches you lickety-split and hits you, maybe spins you around. And if there were 20 or 30 cars out here, turn yourself around for 5 or 6 seconds, that would probably drop you at least 10 spots or so, depending on how strung out the field is. So in those situations, it's not intentional that you get hit and spun out by the driver behind you. Sometimes it's just an accident, but all it takes is a little bit of contact to send your car or truck around. In that scenario, you lose about 5 or 6 spots. So much rather keep that truck going the right direction, let that guy by, and hold on to a couple spots of track position.
And there's a lot of little details that these drivers are probably doing at this stage of the game. When the tires start to wear out, and you start slipping around, and you start to really, sometimes you'll end up altering your brake points, but you're really trying to be smooth on the brakes, avoiding the wheel hop. You're short shifting coming out of the corners to avoid wheel spin. When you're coming up through the gears, everything's just really, really fragile with these trucks. Brian Yazik actually got really loose out of 4A, able to save it though. He got up on the curb as he was trying to light up the gas pedal and got super sideways.
So easy to do here, and how many times have we seen Brian Yazik save a sideways race car on a road course in all of our time broadcasting here in the Pretty Good Racing League? It's too many to count.
And these trucks, sorry, Austin, I was just going to say, these trucks are deceivingly tricky when it comes to wheel spin too, because they really seem like they're bogged down a lot of times with these NT1 Ilmor engines. But once you really start to get into the power band, that's wheel spin coming up through the gears is no joke, and it will sneak up on you.
No, exactly. It's kind of like a turbo lag where you're kind of missing a lot of power, and all of a sudden, bam, there's the power, there's the wheel spin. It's even tricky on a short track, too. It's caught me off guard a lot of times racing these trucks back when the Bootleg Racing League would race them on a regular basis. There's a couple times I found myself facing the infield in a matter of milliseconds, just because the way these trucks have that weird kind of power band like you talked about it. And it really only happens on the slower corners like you get on a short track or a road course of this nature. So again, deceivingly a handful.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty impressed with how clean the racing has been. Granted, we've had a short field, but very little contact, and we haven't seen really hardly anybody spin out or anything like that. So, kudos to these drivers. This is race number 1 too, so this has kind of been a warm-up or practice race, and we got another one coming up.
Scott Eckridge here. White flag is in the air, so last lap for him. He's only about 3/4 of a racetrack away from taking the first victory of 2 races here at the Sonoma Aroma 128K presented by the Joy of Driving. And Scott looking to make this win number 3 in a row, win number 3 of the chase as well. Trying to dig himself out of that hole. Championship leader Michael Krobach, looks like he'll only muster a 6th place finish here. We'll see how he does in race number 2. That should be really exciting there for the first couple laps as we see this field flipped on its head, literally. Going to be a joy to watch. He's got really given it the beans here. He doesn't have to use these tires anymore, so he might as well get all the good out of these good years. He goes through turn 11 for the last time here in race number 1. So I got this little bit of a kick of a left-hander here. He'll see the checkered flag, so Scott Eckridge wins race number 1. And he's got about 12, almost 13 seconds back to Mike Rasmus as the checkered flag flies. It looks like he's going to finish in the second position. We're going to take a quick 90-second break here from the Virtual Grip Network with the Pretty Good Racing League as we let iRacing timing and scoring handle the rest of the first race's affairs, so we'll be right back.
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing. This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
Welcome back to California. We're here for the Sonoma Aroma 128K presented by The Joy of Driving. Scott Eckrich won race number 1. A whopping 13 seconds behind him was Mr. Consistency, once again showing why we gave him that nickname. Matt Taylor saved his tires, did a phenomenal job to hold on to that last spot on the podium for the longest time. Jeff Ward might have used his stuff up a little bit too early in the last race. He'll finish in 4th position. Woody Mahan, consistent, nice run for Woody. Good to see him up there in the top 5. Michael Krobach, not doing the strongest defense of his championship lead so far, but as Kel Yarborough once said, what's the point of a lead if you don't use it up? He'll finish in the 6th position for race number 1. Brian Yazik in the 55 did some nice things in race number 1, but I think he's got a lot of room, right, to continue that decent run as we go into race number 2. But if anyone can do it, it's Yazik. He's shown himself to be one of the better drivers at kind of learning and growing as this series has progresses. Matt Press there finishes in the 8th position. Mark Cohen in 9th. Rooster Rodden in the 10th position. And then rounding out the field, 11 drivers started the race. Mark Poe. He was the only driver scored not on the lead lap as the race concluded. Go ahead and talk to the winner here of race number 1. Didn't pull himself up into the booth, so we'll have to do it on him. Bring Scott Eckrich up here. Scott, you won race number 1 pretty handily. I might add 13 seconds over your closest competition. You've got to feel on fire right now. It's 3 in a row for you.
Yeah, it's great. I love this track, so I am absolutely been looking forward to this week for a long time, and just really love this track, so it's important for me to do well. I'll probably put more effort into this track than just about any other on our schedule.
Yeah, we really had you circled as one of the better drivers at turning left and right repetitively. Going into race number 2 here, because you won the first race, you're starting dead last on the field, but you outscored your championship leading competition, Michael Krobach, by 5 positions. What are the chances you think you can do that again? At least maybe just outscore him on points once again.
Well, I think it would be smart if I used the little bit of advantage I have this week to not get aggressive and just slowly, methodically make my way. I don't need that 13 seconds. I just need 1/1000th, not even. So definitely just going to try to be a little smarter and hope to avoid the early chaos that always kind of seems to occur in the race too.
You know what, Scott, I'll be honest. I would normally commend you on trying to be more reserved and patient, but I don't want to see that. I want you to go out there and win this race by 15 seconds. I want you to do better. Always look for improvement, Scott. Come on, man.
That's going to be pretty hard to do from last.
Well, if anyone can do it, it's you. But, hey, before I get you out of here, though, Scott, who makes all this stuff possible for that 70 Mobile?
As always, all the LPM group getting up these early Sundays to make these sets work for our rules, and then everybody that shows up makes this a fun little hobby we have, and of course you guys for letting us watch our give us something to look forward to watching of ourselves at some point.
All right. Well, Scott Eckrich, winner here of race number 1. We'll see if he can follow it up again in race number 2. If anybody can win the race by 14 seconds, it's Scott Eckrich. So, Scott, best of luck, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
That was Scott Eckrich. Just now running out of time on the warm-up session here. We give drivers 5 minutes in between the races. Just maybe go get some water, take a break, stretch a little bit in between, and kind of get yourself back in the zone for race number 2. Mark Poe finished last on the grid, so he would start on pole. He's unfortunately manually disconnected, but we're going to go ahead and read through the starting order as if he were here. And, of course, all the drivers in the odd-numbered positions just move up one entire row. So Mark Poe on the pole. Rooster Rodden, number 01 truck, he'll start in the second position. Mark Cohen, the watchman, rolls off in third. He'll have Matt Press in fourth. Hopefully Matt Press looking to be a little bit easier on those Goodyear Eagles here in race number 2. Brian Yazik in fifth. I got a strong suspicion that Yazik's just going to stay right up in there in that top 5 now that he's been given that track position, a smoother driver up here. Michael Krobach is going to roll off in the 6th position. Then Woody Mahan starts in 7th. Look for Mahan to come through the field. He's got a really strong, smooth way of going about this place. Jeff Ward in 8th, one of the faster drivers on the road course. Just barely finishing off of the podium there in race number 1. Matt Taylor in 9th. Mike Rasmus, Mr. Consistency in 10th, and Scott Eckrich there in 11th, looking to make it 4 in a row if he can win this race, but it's going to be very difficult for him coming all the way from dead last on the grid.
It's going to be a little bit tough for him. He's going to move forward, though, since Mark Poe did not decide to grid, actually left the session, so that's going to move him up another row, so that will help him a little bit, and could give him an advantage on drivers such as Mike Rasmus, because that'll actually put him alongside Mike instead of actually being behind him going up the hill in the turn 1. So could actually be a big benefit there at the start of the race for Scott Eckrich.
Speaking of big benefits here, one of the biggest benefits we have of broadcasting the Pretty Good Racing League is working with such phenomenal partners, one like The Joy of Driving. If you're looking for entertaining sim racing content, look no further than The Joy of Driving. You can follow Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with his cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. You can follow along by subscribing to The Joy of Driving on YouTube or like his Facebook page at facebook.com/The Joy of Driving channel. iRacing pace car there heads to the outside of the racetrack, gives command of the field over to Mark Cohen, the man of the Joy of Driving channel. He puts his foot on the loud pedal, gets himself off to quite a decent start there, much like we saw Scott Eckrich taking advantage of clearing himself from the rest of the field. Here's Brian Yazik looking up the inside of Rooster Rodden. Talked about Yazik being one of those guys to look at in terms of holding on to his track position very well as the race goes on, and just behind him, Matt Press did a great job of attacking right off the drop of the green flag in race number 1, but then paid for it in race number 2. And unlike race number 1, here in race number 2, we've got a lot of side-by-side action as Jeff Ward going a little bit off the racing surface.
Yeah, he was lucky there. He did a nice job keeping it on the track. Him and Mike Rasmus, they went too wide in a narrow section. You see Scott Eckrich trying to make that move on Rasmus. He's actually going to lose a place, it looks like, to Jeff Ward here.
Yeah, Jeff Ward with the inside as they go through 7A. They're going to start going through the switchbacks here. I'll be interested to see which driver lifts, if either. Scott Eckridge looking to be the one that lifts. Again, practicing that kind of patience that he talked. Whoa, Jeff Ward goes around.
Yeah, and that started at the beginning of the S's. He just kind of got offline, hopped a curb, and once that happened, it really got his rear tires spinning, got him. See, he goes into there sideways, gets on the curb, and then that just sends him right around the other direction.
You hate to see that for the driver of the 9 truck, and once he got that thing pulled to a stop, he just towed from the racetrack, pulled off of it completely. So a very interesting take from that 9 truck. It didn't look like he had any damage. Might have just kind of made the rear tires a little bit hotter, but still had a lot of racing left.
Yeah, and, that's the thing about these road course races, especially at PGRL. We see Rooster Rodden. It looks like he's going to pull over a little bit, probably hurt his rear tires just a tad. But at these road course races, if you just stay on the racing surface, finish all the laps, you can really have a decent finish just because of the way other drivers may have misfortune and go off track.
I saw Rooster Rodden. It looked like he got a little bit loose there out of turn 2 or 3 and then just backed off the throttle. Let the competition go by. See Michael Krobach completing that pass. Now side by side down to the S. This is not a place you want to be side by side with another driver. We've seen a lot of guys get shunted off the track completely. Looks like Woody Mahan going to be the biggest winner out of this, but I think the biggest winner out of this whole battle is everybody that's ahead of him, because there was a big log jam through there. Michael Krobach, the first driver ahead of these guys, he's already cleared. Whoa, Rooster Rodden into the wall.
Yeah, Scott got into the back of him. He was racing Mike Rasmus side by side, and I think he just might have gotten a little bit impatient there. Just time to go and got into the back of Rooster coming out of the S's.
If we get a replay of this. Oh, yeah. Maybe Rooster got loose, had to lift, and Scott just not really expecting that. It's not a part of the racetrack where you usually crack the throttle. You're usually corner exit, hammer down all the way until your braking point there for turn 11. But talk about Scott Eckridge having a rough go of things. The only drivers he's really passed on track for position that are still running is Matt Taylor. And that pass just happened. Taylor was proving to be quite a thorn in the side of Eckridge.
Yeah, he was. And, I think Taylor, he's going to be smart. I mean, he knows that he didn't do the best job early in the race of conserving his tires. So he's probably going to try to ride as close as he can to Scott Eckridge here, try to learn something, see what he can do differently. And that doesn't just help you in this race, but that carries on the next time that PGRL goes to a road course. You know how to do those same things.
And going downhill through the S's there, Michael Krobach was very close to the 60 truck of Matt Press. And I want to say it was turn 8 or 9. I think it was turn 9. He just had a really bad run getting through turn 8A. Backed off the throttle a lot because he went wide and lost a ton of time. That's why you see Woody Mahan all the way up underneath his rear spoiler. At the front of the field, it's still the Washman leading the race. He's got Brian Yazik in the second position. Matt Press so far this race doing a much better job at tire management, Kenny.
Yeah, for sure. It's been interesting watching those drivers who finished up towards the front try to work their way through the field. And this just goes to show how narrow this track is at Sonoma and how hard it is to pass and how physical the racetrack can be as well, as you just try to see Scott Eckridge just try to methodically work his way through, but progress is kind of a slog here, but he is trying to get 2 for 1 here down in the 90-degree corner, just only able to get the 1, but it is a big pass there to get Rasmus.
Yeah, Rasmus, one of the faster drivers on these road courses, and that's how it is, right? If you go through race 1 the way it should be, where the fastest drivers all kind of finish and get slower and slower through the field, you're having to pass your toughest competition right off the drop of the green flag here, and that's what Scott Eckridge is trying to do. Some motion going on at the front end of the field. Matt Press makes a dive for Brian Yazik for the second position. Looks like he's going to get it. Yazik goes wide. He's going to be careful. Oh, back further in the pack, I think Rasmus might have gotten into Scott Eckridge a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like they keep it going, but that's definitely cost Rasmus a little bit, puts him back in the clutches of Matt Taylor. So he's going to have to get his truck moving again, but he closes up nicely going up the hill there into turn 2.
We saw Mark Cohn have such a phenomenal run at Watkins Glen earlier in the season. Of course, that was in the Generation 4 Cup car, but a lot of the same kind of practices and techniques going into driving these Craftsman Truck Series trucks. You see Matt Press looking down low, trying to go for a late braking opportunity. Mark Cohn tries to fake him out. He'll go wide. Looks like he should have the momentum and the inside here. Oh, Matt Press just did a much better job at putting down the throttle. That's going to put Cohn now into the second position. Can he slap back in line? No, not quite. Yazek going to take the opportunity, as is Krobach and Mahan. Cohn getting just swamped here.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you do not want to go into the S's too wide. Once you get thrown offline, it is very difficult to get the truck gathered back up and have speed. We see the race up ahead here with Scott Eckridge and Woody Mahan. Woody kind of throwing a little bit of a block there. Woody's ready to race this week.
Yeah, well, I think it was just everybody trying to outbrake the guy in front of him. And interestingly enough, Mike Rasmus went around the outside of Scott Eckridge there. So he's got the position back on that 70 truck. Now Woody Mahan once again under fire for Mr. Consistency. Scott Eckridge trying to poke his nose in there. He'll go too wide. He's on the outside, disadvantage there for turn 2, excuse me. But he'll have the inside here into 3. And then the switchback for 3A. He'll clear himself.
He will. Mike tried to do the crossover, but just did not have enough acceleration there to get back to his inside. I think everybody's just really trying to make sure that they race Scott Eckridge hard. They know how big of a win he had in race number 1, how big of a lead he had in that win. They want to make sure that he does not have the same here in race number 2.
And look at Yazek. He's elbows out there in the 55 truck. He's really going after it. Barely gets the lead there over Matt Press. Move the 55 truck into the lead. Now Press, goes at it after Yazek giving him a big slam. Apologize over the radio. Late braking opportunity. Krobach looking to the inside of Press. Thinks better. Oh, Mahan, no, into the tires.
Yeah, I think that was off the nose of Scott Eckridge. A lot going on going into that corner. We'll have to get a replay to see exactly what happened there, but a lot of cars moving around trying to make moves.
Just a big old accordion here. Scott Eckridge wasn't even looking to make the pass. Woody Mahan just tried to go to the outside, and as soon as he broke a little extra hard, tried to go to the outside, Scott Eckridge not really knowing what was going on in front of him. Just left rear Mahan there. That really sucks for Mahan. He's got about 7 seconds. Make that 8 behind the leaders. And he was having such a great race too, was Woody Mahan.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he had speed all night. Race 1 definitely had it again in race number 2. So was looking to have a good night here. Did get a top 5 in race number 1. I definitely think he was going to be in contention for another top 5 here in race number 2 had that not happened to him.
The leader at the moment, still the 55 truck of Brian Yazek. He's got the biggest lead of any driver we've seen today. Well, look at Mike Rasmus going around the outside of Michael Krobach. Oh, overshot it. He's even going to lose a position, it looks like, to Scott Eckridge. He will have the momentum. Oh, man, he's dooring Eckridge as they go through the left-hander.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tight area where you're trying to funnel into, and Mike just knew that he needed a little bit more room in order to make that corner. And that's part of racing. The drivers are going to try to squeeze you to get an advantage through there, and Mike wasn't going to have it today.
That Scott Eckridge went to give him the one of it there as they went into turns 2 and 3. He's on the back foot pretty heavily. Matt Taylor now sizing him up for a pass. And we're about 50% of the way through this race, and Scott Eckridge kind of 50% of the way through the field, but he's got a lot more trucks to pass than it seems like.
He does. We saw that at the end of race number 1, he was able to really pull away. He was faster than everyone else the entire race, but especially at the end. So definitely, if he's not over-abused his tires, he'll be able to do the same and make some easy passes here. He's just got to keep it under control, not get too aggravated by the drivers ahead of him.
Yeah, the worst thing I think for Scott right now, just mentality-wise, is he in a way you could say he's cleaned out some other drivers. It wasn't necessarily his fault when he did. It's kind of just a weird situation he was put in where you can't see through other trucks, and you never know what the guy ahead of you is doing or thinking at the time, and that weighs heavily on your conscience as a race car driver going through these corners, these races, trying to make passes, trying to set yourself up for passes. You race aggressively, Kenny, when you try to go after a pass, and after you take a guy out as a mistake, not even trying to, it doesn't do you well for the rest of the race.
No, it really doesn't, and especially when you're still involved in a bunch of traffic, you have to kind of mentally block out what just happened. Also, hope that you don't have any damage on your own vehicle at the same time. But yeah, it becomes hard to hit your marks. You become a little bit timid, a little bit afraid to kind of push the issue at times, and sometimes that's what it takes to make passes at tracks like this, is to be aggressive, and sometimes you mentally have to kind of reset, put things behind you, and kind of ask for forgiveness later, if you will.
Mike Rasmus continues to try and attack the Krobach machine, continues to look on the outside. He's tried to do a couple over-unders, kind of diamond the corner a little bit to try and catch up to Krobach, but Krobach just doing a consistent enough job that, yes, Rasmus is faster than him, but not faster enough to complete the pass. And that's kind of how it is for all the drivers from Krobach to back, is Eckrich is faster than Rasmus, but not faster enough to complete the pass just yet. Matt Taylor still kind of lurking back there in the weeds. He's faster than, I think, the first three guys in the field, but just slower than Scott Eckrich and Mike Rasmus, it seems, for right now.
Yeah, for sure. And in my opinion, watching what we're doing here, well, it looks like he's, I thought Krobach was going to lose that spot because he got a little bit offline, but he was able to maintain it. And I was going to say the biggest thing Krobach needs to do is just kind of keep those drivers that are behind him back there, make sure he's getting good exits onto those straightaways that lead to the passing zones. Because at the end of race number one, Krobach was a lot faster than Matt Press and Brian Yozik, so there's a good chance that he will do the same here in this race, but he's got to keep those two guys of Rasmus and Scott Eckrich behind him.
Going for a defensive line here into turn 11. Rasmus looking for the outside, almost clears himself. He's going to have momentum here, getting on the throttle a little bit earlier. He'll have the inside for this corner and the next one. We'll see if he can draw even with Krobach. Still disadvantaged. Krobach clears himself, slides back over the nose of Rasmus, and now look at Eckrich going for the attack.
I was just about to say, every time you pull out of line and try to make a pass, at the same time you're making yourself vulnerable to the driver behind you. And that's why this situation right here is a little bit unique compared to what we had in race number one, because there's this train of drivers that it always seems like the one in behind is faster than the one in front throughout the entire line. So, if you make a challenge, you need to make sure that you make that move stick, or else you might be vulnerable to actually going backwards.
Got Eckrich looking side by side here with Mike Rasmus as they go down the hill. A little bit of pinch in there. I think he cleared himself there on Rasmus. That was a tight one. I'm not sure if he heard the word clear or if he just went for it and hope to maybe ask for forgiveness later there from Rasmus, but that was tight.
Yeah, definitely tight for sure. So Mike definitely cut him a break, there. But Mike's going to look to challenge back here. He's going to be aggressive. Yeah, he's going to be aggressive. He wants to move forward. He knows that those trucks ahead of him are actually holding him up, and now Scott Eckrich is going to have the advantage.
Mike went into turn 11 there, and he didn't wallop him, but he did give him a little bit of a hey, how you doing, what was that for kind of bump. So now Scott Eckrich all over the rear end here of Michael Krobach. And the worst thing is that for Rasmus, Eckrich is faster than Rasmus, but he's faster enough than Krobach. He might now have the opportunity to just pass him on straight speed, whereas Rasmus wasn't faster enough to pass him. He was only faster enough to catch him. So we'll see what Scott Eckrich can do, looking to go around the outside. This is the same way he passed Rasmus last lap. Oh, he's going to clear himself on Krobach. That is the last thing Rasmus wanted to see, and now he's got to be cussing up a storm because Michael Krobach continues to hold him up.
Yeah, you start to really get frustrated, especially in those situations where you've lost a position and now you still can't get by that guy you've been trying to pass. But The advantage that Scott Eckridge has, it looks clearly that he is taking care of his tires like he did in race number 1, and he's able to outbrake his competition going into these corners. So even if they block to the inside, he's just going to go around them on the outside.
Finally, the floodgates open there for Rasmus and Matt Taylor. They're both going to go around Michael Krobach here. Last thing Krobach wanted to see in terms of the championship points, he's going to have to hope that he can get a couple more of those positions back before things are all said and done and the final points for the race are awarded. Scott Eckridge continues to draw a bead on the second place. The truck, that's Matt Press, looking all over the rear bumper now of Press. I would assume he's going to go for the exact same kind of move in turn 7A that he used on Rasmus and Krobach. Let's see if he does it. See him think about the outside here. He's going to make it look to the inside. Nothing doing. A little bit more patience out of Eckridge this time by, but I think he was close enough there. Press just did a better job at keeping his truck more to the left than I think Scott would have wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt's going to fight hard for this. He's looking to have a good run, and he's obviously, not in the chase. So he's here to get the good runs, get the possible wins. So he's going to go at it hard, and you never know. Brian Yazik is out ahead of this group by a little over 2 seconds, but this is a tough track to get around just by yourself. Yazik could have issues, so this race that we are watching on the screen right now between Matt Press and Scott Eckridge, it could be the lead at some point. So you've got to fight hard for every position.
You do, and right now, Brian Yazik's best friend is Matt Press, because the more Press continues to hold off Eckridge, the larger and larger his lead can get. Scott, though, side by side with Press, looking at it, gets the call, but Press clears himself with the inside there through turn 3, now through turn 3A. Scott continues to hound him. He's all over the rear bumper. Press, though, a little bit more of an advantage than he had at this part of the track 1 lap ago. We'll see what Scott does. Breaks the plane, jumps down to the inside. Did he overbrake? Not in the slightest. Look at Mike Rasmus. He's trying to go through side-by-side action here with Matt Press. Press still has the advantage. Let's see who comes out on top.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. Actually, Rasmus came very close to really going off the track, dropped the right sides in just a little bit, but they stayed side by side through the S's. That is not where you want to be, and he's going to have to concede that position going into the last and final part of the S.
Once again, if you're Mike Rasmus, I have to assume your blood is just boiling right now, because Scott Eckridge can make a move, and whoa, man, Matt Press getting really sideways there through turn 11. Would not be too surprised if Rasmus clears himself. Look at Matt Taylor. He might do the exact same thing here.
Yeah, Matt Taylor's definitely going to try to go around the outside.
Oh, went a little bit too wide.
Yeah, just did not have the grip out there, so he's going to have to give it back up. I did notice when Scott Eckridge was passing Matt Press actually got a little bit of wheel hop, got loose going into that corner where Scott passed him. So he's starting to get those rear tires a little bit angry. He's going to have to dial in some front brake and take care of those rear tires, or that situation is going to get a lot worse. It'll eventually feel like you're just on ice.
You can see Rasmus kind of having the same sort of dealio there, that rear end of the truck starts to yaw itself out under braking, and that's what happened going into turn 4 there. Matt Taylor now trying to see if he can't get around Matt Press. It's the battle of the mats once again. How many times have we seen this season?
Yeah, it's something we're probably going to continue to see throughout the rest of the year, and I'm telling you, Matt Taylor really learned a lot in race number 1. He's going to try to make the move on Matt Press, under braking into turn 11 here. Oh, he outbrakes himself. Matt Press, he was ready for that and does the crossover to take it back.
Very, very well executed move there by Matt Press. He'll continue to hold on to that 4th position. Michael Krobach still kind of waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
I definitely tell he's faster than these guys.
Yeah, he definitely had a rough few laps earlier in that race, just past halfway. But now it looks like he's got those tires back under control. He's starting to reel these drivers in. He's probably going to hope that he makes that pass on Matt Taylor before Matt Taylor does on Matt Press, because Taylor's potentially going to drive away from Krobach. Oh, and you see Matt Press getting loose under braking once again right there.
Matt Taylor now side by side. He's going to cross him over as they go down the hill, and Michael Krobach just sitting back there. He's going to have to be really careful. If these guys get into it, he's going to get taken out for sure. And Kenny, just like you talked about, Taylor looking for the move, opens the door up for Michael Krobach to have the opportunity to pass him. Then Krobach's going to just lift and fall back in line for now.
Oh, and these drivers down here, these three have outbraked themselves a few times here in this race, and that was one way that Mike Rasmus was actually able to make some progress. He has been really good down in that hairpin turn 11 with just deep braking, but also getting the truck right down on the rumble strips and keeping it down there and getting the power down, and keeping the truck nice and straight. That's what I've noticed. Rasmus made a couple passes in this race by using that corner to his advantage. These three back here, I think they're figuring, they're not going to go up and catch Rasmus Ekrich or Yazik, so they're just kind of racing amongst themselves and really giving it all they got here in these last 3.5 laps.
Just as he did in race number 1, about the same time in the race, Brian Yazik got extremely loose coming off turn 4A. Gave away a couple more tenths to Scott Ekrich, but now comes the hard part. Scott's run him down. He has to make the pass. And just as the rooster milker Bill Soupson likes to say, something about milking a rooster, I don't know his dad's words, I couldn't tell you, but this is the battle on screen for the lead. Brian Yazik has it. Scott Ekrich wants it. Scott trying to go 2 for 2 on the night, 4 for 4 in the last 4 races.
Yeah, and right now, Brian's job is to really focus on corner exits, particularly, like I said earlier, getting onto those straightaways that lead to the passing zone. So he can be slower throughout the rest of this racetrack, but he has got to be good on those corner exits. He's got to make sure he gets a good straight launch coming out of those corners, does not spin the tires.
Yazik doing a very good job so far. You can see him putting down the power a little bit better than Ekrich has been in some of these corners. Just pulls away from Ekrich a little bit, and I'm not sure if that Scott used up his rear tires or maybe he's just a little bit too over-eager at this point. And just as it kind of ebbs, it also flows as well for Ekrich. You see him start to ease in on Yazik at a couple of these corners, just a little bit smoother over the course of a lap.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to have to be smooth through here. You cannot afford to get offline. Getting offline just a little bit, particularly in that last section that we saw, can really send you out into the dirt. Your race will be over because the guys around you are just going to fly right by you. But you see Brian Yazik, he's continuing to get pretty good launches on the corner exit compared to Scott Ekrich. We know Scott is extremely fast around here. We're coming in with 2 laps to go. Look for Scott to really start to make up some ground under braking and potentially passes going into some of these hairpin corners.
Yeah, Scott's got a lot of really good speed, especially through these apexes, and that's where he gains the most time on Yazik, is these slower corners where you really have to set yourself up well, kind of the more blind corners. Yazik, once again, he's been phenomenal compared to Ekrich through turn 3A. This time much better through turn 4A. We'll see how he does in 7A.
Yeah, and I got to say, it's one of the toughest things.
Oh, he got so loose, that's going to kill him down the hill.
Yeah, it is. But the good thing is it's very hard to pass through the S's here. But I was going to say, it's extremely hard to do. You have to be a really talented race car driver to do it. But Brian Yazik really needs to try to back Scott Ekrich up into Mike Rasmus, who has been charging the last several laps, because if you can get Scott Ekrich and Mike Rasmus racing, that might just get you the win. But we're coming down to 1 to go. Looks like Brian's going to be able to hold him off going into the last corner here, or into turn 11, here, coming to the white.
Yeah, white flag in the air, 1 lap to go. Yazik holding on for dear life. He's got Scott Ekrich breathing down his neck. Best road course driver in the league by quite a lot. This is going to be a true feat if Yazik can continue to hold him off. speaking from the last couple laps with experience, this has been Yazik's worst part of the racetrack. This is where I thought he needed to gain the most experience and speed through these two races. Executes these corners very well. And up here, if Scott doesn't make the pass, at least by turn 7A, his last hope is the hairpin. Yazik does very well through there. Now towards the end of the top of the hill, this is Eckridge's last opportunity before turn 11 in the hairpin. Yazik goes through there very well. Holds Scott Eckridge up just a little bit, and like you mentioned, JR, so hard to pass coming down the hill.
It's hard to pass coming down the hill, and you can run about as slow as you want to through here and keep that driver behind you. But the problem is when you get to the end of these S's, you need to have a bit of a gap because you're coming down into the hairpin of turn 11. So this turn right here is extremely important for Brian Yazik. He does get a decent run. He's going to have to block the inside here.
God, Eckridge really laid on the brakes, trying to go for the old over-under. Tries to go around the outside of Yazik. Yazik gets loose. He's going to try to go for the crossover as Scott Eckridge. It's not going to be enough. Brian Yazik holds on to win here, the second race of 2 at Sonoma.
Big win there for Brian Yazik to be able to hold Eckridge off. That's pretty cool, guys.
That's awesome. Great win there for Brian Yazik. Holds off the road course king of the Pretty Good Racing League. With that, we're going to talk to that man in about 90 seconds here after we go through the finishing results from this race. We're going to take a quick commercial break, though, and be back in a bit. Welcome back to California. We're here for the Sonoma Aroma 128K presented by The Joy of Driving. If you're looking for entertaining sim racing content, look no further than The Joy of Driving. You can follow Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with his cat-like reflexes, all while providing current commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. You can follow along by subscribing to The Joy of Driving on YouTube or like his Facebook page at facebook.com/The Joy of Driving channel. If you turn up your speakers, you can probably hear the burnout going on from Brian Yazik. He's doing it right up there near turn 10 or so. He just got done winning here at race number 2. Brian Yazik takes home the checkered flag. Scott Eckridge comes so close here. You see 4/10 off the lead in the second position. Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus, rounds out the podium. Matt Preston fourth. Matt Taylor rounds out the top 5. Michael Krobach, another 6th place finish on the day for him. Mark Cullen, the watchman, in 7th position. Woody Mahan, he definitely had the speed, I think, to finish in the top 5 once again, if not challenge for that 4th position, maybe make it onto the podium. Just got left reared by Scott Eckridge on accident going into turn 11 in the hairpin, got himself turned around, only can manage 8th place position. Rooster Rodden finishes 9th. Jeff Ward looped it around early on in the race. He'll finish 20 laps down. Go ahead and see if we can't talk to our race winner here, Brian Yazik. We'll go ahead and pull him into the booth, and I'll hand it over to J.R. Shepard.
Absolutely. Hey, Brian, man, congratulations on the big win here tonight at Sonoma in race number 2. I want to go back to the beginning of that race. You had to start from around the 5th position. What were your thoughts based on how race number 1 went, and what adjustments you thought you were going to have to make as a driver going into race number 2?
I mean, the biggest thing was that the strength of the field was pretty good, so there was the likelihood of mistakes was probably low. And then once, I kind of noticed once everybody kind of settled into a rhythm, just kind of how Sonoma is. There's only so many spots that you can really make it pass at. So if you can defend those spots, then life is fine. But I knew that we could hold on to the tire, so I wanted to be in clear air as quick as I could to try to maximize that strategy that I had. But I mean, I guess it worked out. But yeah, just trying to get clear and then and be able to accelerate and just focus and hit your marks and go forward. Like that was just the way to do it.
Absolutely. A race like this, it always benefits to keep the tires on the track first and then find some speed a little bit later. But take us to the end of that race. We were watching, we saw Scott Eckridge coming through the field. We know how fast he was in race number 1. What were your thoughts once you saw Scott get into second place? And did you do anything different as a driver in order to be able to get this win here at the end?
Well, first thing I said to myself was when he got to second was, well, I guess I got to start going faster now. And then I immediately, the next set of corners, cost myself like at least half a second, and then the next lap I cost myself another half a second. So that was brilliant driving from my part. But I knew that because I've raced against Scott plenty of times and I know how fast he is here, so I knew that I had a lot working against me. But I know he was struggling and getting knocked around and getting through the field. So what I was hoping is that maybe that took some of his tire away, and it seemed so. We were able to really get the drive off and put myself in a better spot to defend into the next corners. But then I knew he was going to sail it on the last corner, so it was just a matter of try to go as defensive and as smart as possible and hope for the best. And I heard spotter say clear, and I went, all right, we're flooring it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did a great job. He was trying to go around you on the outside, just could not make it stick. So once again, man, congratulations on that big win. Before I let you go, I want to ask, what are your thoughts going in the next week? We go to one of the wild card races. We're going to be out at Talladega.
Talladega's Talladega. I've been on iRacing for a long time. I've really only got a handful of wins at those tracks across however many years. So it is what it is. I've been in the front, I've been wrecked. I've been in the middle, I've been wrecked. I've been dead last, and I've been wrecked. So you just hope that the spirits of Talladega are on your side. That's really the only thing you can hope for.
Absolutely. I completely understand, man. But hopefully next week you have fortune on your side once again, and we get to talk to you up here in the booth. But before I let you go, who do you want to thank for your big run here tonight?
I mean, Yaza Sandwiches are getting ready to open up next Monday, so that's cool for my folks. Sim Racing Apps, longtime supporter. SimRacingApps.com, so the best free software you can get. Loud Pedal Motorsports, PGRL, everybody that makes this show go. You guys for hanging out and broadcasting our crazy little hobby here. And yeah, it's just great. It's good to get a win again. Been a while, so it's good to roll through the rest of the year on a high note.
Absolutely, man. Hey, congratulations. Great race number 2 here tonight, and hopefully we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys, that was our big winner in race number 2, Brian Yazik. And with that, I believe Kenny's now caught up with a special guest.
I've caught up with Michael Krobach this week. And Michael, quick summary on your races tonight. So you qualified 6th in race number 1, and you end up finishing 6th. So because of the field size, you end up inverting, which made you start 6th in race 2. And you came home 6th in race 2.
Raysdale, praise hell. I don't know what to say to that. Yeah, we had a pretty consistent race. I thought we had a shot there to run up front in the second race there and keep pace with Brian, because me, Brian, and Matt were pretty even in race 2, and it's just so hard to pass here and to get a good run. And the harder I tried, the worse my drive off got, and so I just kind of got stuck and did my best to hold off Mike and Scott as long as I could, and eventually my tires were just kind of shot and they both got by and we just kind of cruised to a 6th. I really wanted to get Matt Taylor there at the end and drag race back to the line, but drive off was gone, so we couldn't do it.
Yeah, you guys were really going at it, and obviously we were watching the battle for the lead there on that last lap between Yazik and Eckrich, but I was off camera watching you and Taylor go at it. You guys were flip-flopping spots, racing side by side, and just, I guess, talk to the viewers about the challenges of what it's like to deal with traffic around Sonoma with how narrow it is and how, like you said just a little bit ago, how difficult it is to get drive up out of the corners.
Yeah, it felt like, especially with this setup, like if you were out of the groove just a little bit, maybe the way the cambers were, the way the splitter was, it did not like that at all. There was no grip. So it was just really hard to hit that perfect line every time and to kind of try to generate a run wherever you could. And at times I would just back off to get the guys in front to race each other and maybe make a mistake, and that's where, an opportunity would work out. But the way that the dust is around the track and the marbles and everything like that, offline, it's just really hard to put the power down. So every time I tried to get beside, whether it was Matt Taylor or Matt Press or anybody like that, it was just hard to complete the pass, and they'd have the preferred line and would pull me back off the corner. So we tried. We didn't want to hit anybody, and I think we did a good job of that, and kind of minimize the points loss. I kind of figured going in, Scott would probably gain a bunch of points, and he gained 50. I mean, it's not terrible, but we're going into Talladega next week, and anything could happen there.
Right, obviously that one's the wild card, but as far as like all the races that we have left, was Sonoma was that the one were kind of circling as far as the one that, you're just going to kind of play defense and play damage control?
Yeah, basically. I mean, with the other tracks, Talladega is kind of a wild card. We have a pretty good shot there, I think. We just won a 4.2K SOF B race before we hopped into Sonoma, so I do like super speedways. Iowa, I think I'm, fairly okay at. And, those other ovals where, Mike or Scott are probably a little faster, anything could happen with pit strategy and tires and cautions and things like that. So I think just kind of being in the right place, right time, matters going forward. But Sonoma was definitely the one I had circled as my weakness here.
Well, you were able to get through it, and I think you'll keep the points lead, right? So it's still a decent showing for you. So who would you like to thank for the completely bang average runs tonight?
Oh, yeah, just the whole consistency of the 72 team needs a shout out. It's probably Woody Mahan-like performance of how consistent that was. So I'll give a shout out to Woody. Learned a thing or two over the years, road courses, racing with him. I got to thank Scott for, I studied his throttle and brake inputs in practice, and that was pretty helpful. I obviously couldn't do anything remotely close to what he did, but I felt like I was learning, and when you've been on the sim for 14 years, learning something new that long into the game is still pretty fun. So got to thank those guys, and of course, Team Conti and all the boys back at the shop.
Sounds good, Michael. Thanks for coming into the booth to talk to us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Kenny.
That was Michael Krobach here to cap off a week of road racing, the last road races of the season for PGRL. And Austin, I would say that race number 2 really didn't disappoint as far as the excitement factor.
Well, I can't disagree one bit, Kenny. Race number 1, while exciting, it was kind of a snooze fest the way Scott Eckrich ran away with it. Nothing wrong with that, though. Fastest driver won that race starting on pole. Congratulations to Scott on that. And there was still some really excellent racing back through further on, deeper into the pack, so that was nice. But boy, race number 2 was more than enough excitement for both the races combined into one. That was awesome to watch. A big congratulations to Brian Yazik. So nice to see him win. He's one of those drivers, man, where if things can click off, he's a driver that can really take the championship fight to the big guys. Got so close to winning the Season 3 championship almost a year and a half ago. I think so. It's been a while, a hot minute since we've seen him win, but man, just really happy for him, JR.
Yeah, definitely. Really cool to see Brian be able to get that win. Race number 2, very exciting, a lot of aggression, but you kind of expect that. Outside of short track racing, road courses is going to be the next area where you can really get the elbows out and be aggressive and make moves and get up there and play for the win. Brian Yazik certainly was able to do that here tonight. Next week we go into Talladega. That's going to be a completely wild card race for this chase group to be able to come out of on top. So that's a race where anything can happen. You're going to have to be smart, going to have to find some good drafting partners, and you're going to have a lot of luck on your side.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to see how race number 2 played out with just really close racing and how it was close for the entire race. I thought that the beginning was going to be hectic, but that it would kind of spread out towards the end, and that really didn't happen. I mean, the leaders kind of got away, but they still had a battle amongst themselves. So race number 2 was really nice to see there, and that's a testament to PGRL format and how the invert really creates some excitement in race number 2 every single week. And as far as next week, at Talladega, if we do have kind of a shorter field like what we have been having, that might turn Talladega into kind of an old school type race where if drivers fall out because of crash damage or if they have some kind of problem that makes them lose the draft, we might run into a case where we have 1, 2, 3 drivers that kind of battle it out and have to kind of figure out a way to somehow slingshot past their opponent, like in the old school 1970s and 80s type deals where you just had a few cars battling for the win. So Talladega might look a little differently than what we might expect.
Yeah, speaking of Talladega, of course, we go there next week. We're back live next Tuesday, April 23rd, at, as always, 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Talladega, those big plate races never disappoint. And then, of course, this Friday, the staple, the Bootleg Racing League's Outlaw SK Modified Series. They head to Slinger Speedway for the first time ever in the Bootleg Racing League. It's going to be an awesome race to watch, so definitely you won't want to miss that this Friday, April 19th. That stream goes live at 8:55 p.m. Eastern Time. This has been a pretty good production of the Virtual Grip Network on behalf of myself, Austin Belke, as well as my booth mates J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe, along with our director Ryan Steneker. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night.